I stood in that principal's office, tears burning behind my eyes, as two smug parents told me I was a failure, that my daughter deserved to be banned because I was a single mother, a bad woman who couldn't raise a child alone. They had no idea that with one phone call, I was about to bring a man into that room who would make them regret every venomous word. If you've ever been told you're not enough, that your life choices make you a target, this story is for you. Smash that like button if you believe real family shows up when the world attacks you. And subscribe because we're about to prove that a mother's love and a true father's protection can destroy any bully. My name is Hazel. I'm 38 years old, and I've spent most of my life building walls so high that love couldn't climb them. But pain couldn't reach me either. I learned early that men were liabilities. My biological father, Christopher, was my first teacher. I was 13 when I found my mother, Clara, sobbing in the kitchen, holding evidence of his affair. He didn't just cheat. He abandoned us completely. Vanished. Left us struggling in a 2-bedroom apartment while he started fresh with someone younger. Someone he deemed more worthy. My mother worked 3 jobs. I wore everything secondhand, and I learned lesson number 1. A man's love is conditional, temporary, and always comes with an expiration date. When my mother married William 3 years after my father left, I was 16 and furious. William was everything Christopher wasn't: stable, kind, wildly successful. He owned half the commercial real estate in our city. He had money, power, influence, and that terrified me. I saw him as a ticking time bomb, a polished version of the same poison that destroyed my mother once already. I didn't want his money. I didn't want his fake fatherly advice. I wanted nothing from him, so I rejected him. Completely. Coldly. I wouldn't call him dad. I wouldn't accept gifts. When he tried to pay for college, I refused and took out loans instead. The day I turned 18, I moved out and never looked back. I met Michael when I was 23, working double shifts at a downtown cafe to pay off those college loans I'd stubbornly taken instead of accepting William's help. Michael was 25, charming in that effortless way that should have been my first red flag. He was a graphic designer, always talking about his next big project, always one breakthrough away from success. He noticed me. That was enough. After years of building walls, after convincing myself I didn't need anyone, having someone actually see me felt like oxygen after drowning. He'd wait for me after my shifts, bring me coffee, tell me I was beautiful even when I was exhausted and covered in coffee stains. He made me laugh. He made me feel less alone. We moved in together after 6 months. It felt reckless and perfect. For the first time since my father left, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, not all men were poison. Maybe I could have something real. When I found out I was pregnant 2 years into our relationship, I was terrified but hopeful. Michael seemed excited at first. He talked about baby names, about getting a bigger apartment, about stepping up. I believed him. I let myself imagine a future where I wasn't repeating my mother's story. But pregnancy changes things. It reveals who people really are when the fantasy becomes real, when love requires sacrifice instead of just sentiment. Michael started staying out later. He'd come home smelling like bars and excuses. He stopped asking about doctor's appointments. He stopped touching me, and when I was 7 months along, swollen and exhausted and vulnerable, I found the texts. He wasn't even sorry. He said I'd changed, that I was always tired and no fun anymore. As if growing his child inside my body was some kind of inconvenience to his social life. He told me he needed space, that he wasn't ready for this, that maybe we'd rushed into things. He packed a bag and left. Just like my father. Just like every man I'd ever trusted. Martha was born 6 weeks later. He wasn't there. He never met her. Never sent money. Never called. He simply erased us from his life like we'd never existed at all. That's when lesson number 2 became carved into stone. Every man will eventually betray you. It's not a question of if, it's when, and it confirmed everything I'd believed about William. I'd been right to reject him at 16. I'd been right to refuse his help. Because this is what men do. They promise, they charm, they seem different, and then they destroy you. For the next 15 years, William kept trying. He sent checks I tore up. He called on birthdays, and I let it go to voicemail. He told my mother to tell me he was proud of me, and I rolled my eyes. I was so determined to prove I didn't need a man, any man, that I locked myself away from the only one who ever tried to be there. Then came the crisis that shattered everything. My beautiful, kind 10-year-old daughter, Martha, came home crying for the 4th day in a row. The bullying had started small. Whispers, giggles, exclusion at recess. But it escalated. A girl named Amanda, the daughter of 2 of the most arrogant parents in the district, had turned Martha's life into a nightmare. Amanda didn't just push or tease. She was cruel in a way that felt calculated, learned from adults. Every single day, she would corner Martha and whisper the same venomous line. "You don't have a daddy because your mommy is a bad woman. That's why he left. That's why no one wants you." She was weaponizing my single status. She was using the deepest wound I'd spent decades hiding, and she was carving it into my daughter's heart. Martha tried to be strong. She tried to ignore it. But when Amanda destroyed Martha's art project, something my daughter had worked on for weeks, and then laughed, saying, "Fatherless girls don't deserve to win anything," Martha snapped. She pushed Amanda. Hard. Amanda fell and scraped her knee. The next day I got the call. Principal James Harrison wanted to see me immediately. The air in Principal Harrison's office felt thick, suffocating. I walked in and immediately knew I was outnumbered. Amanda's parents, Mr. Andrew Denton and Mrs. Amber Denton, were already seated, dressed like they were heading to a courtroom. Andrew was a lawyer, mid-tier, but loud about it. Amber was a real estate agent who thought her commission checks made her royalty. They both looked at me like I was something they'd scraped off their shoe. Principal Harrison sat behind his desk, fingers steepled, looking uncomfortable. "Ms. Hazel, thank you for coming in. We have a serious situation to discuss," I tried to explain. I tried to tell them about the weeks of emotional torture Amanda had inflicted. I pulled out my phone to show the texts Martha had sent me, the ones where she begged me not to make her go to school. But before I could finish, Amber cut me off. "Enough," she said, her voice sharp and cold. "Your daughter physically assaulted mine." She pushed Amanda to the ground. "That is violence, Ms. Hazel, and frankly, I'm not surprised." I blinked. "Excuse me?" Amber leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with something ugly and triumphant. Children who lack structure, who don't have a stable home life, tend to act out. Amanda told us all about Martha's situation. "No father, just you. And clearly you're overwhelmed. Some women just aren't equipped to raise children alone." The room started spinning. This wasn't about the push. This was a character assassination. Andrew, playing the role of reasonable lawyer, slid a piece of paper across the desk. "We're willing to let this go without involving the police or pursuing assault charges, which we absolutely could, if you sign this." I looked down. It was a typed letter of apology, an admission that I had failed as a parent, that my inadequate home environment had caused Martha's aggression, that I took full responsibility for being a bad mother. "You want me to say I'm a bad mother?" My voice cracked. "We want you to take accountability," Amber said sweetly, as if she were doing me a favor. "And maybe consider some parenting classes. A male role model program, perhaps? Children need fathers, Ms. Hazel. That's just biology." Principal Harrison cleared his throat. "Ms. Hazel, until you sign this apology and demonstrate remorse, Martha will remain suspended. We can't allow violent students back on campus without consequences." I sat there, frozen, humiliated, gutted. They weren't just punishing Martha. They were punishing me for every choice I'd ever made, for getting pregnant, for being abandoned, for surviving alone. They were saying the cruelty I endured was my fault, and now my daughter was paying the price. I left that office in a daze. I didn't sign anything. I just walked out, got in my car, and sat in the parking lot, shaking. When I got home, Martha was waiting. Her face was swollen from crying. She looked up at me with those big wounded eyes and asked the question that destroyed me. "Mommy, why doesn't my daddy protect me?" I had no answer. Am I suspended because Amanda is right? Because you're a bad woman? That was the moment. The moment every wall I'd built crumbled. I realized I was failing my daughter, not because I was single, not because I was inadequate, but because I was too proud, too scared, too damaged to ask for help from the one man who'd been offering it for 20 years. Martha needed a protector. She needed proof that Amanda's words were lies. She needed a man to stand up and show her that loyalty, protection, and love still existed. I walked into the kitchen, hands trembling, and pulled out my phone. I scrolled to a contact I hadn't called in 2 decades. William, my stepfather. I pressed the call before I could talk myself out of it. He answered on the second ring. Hazel? His voice was older, but still steady. Calm. Like he'd been waiting for this call my entire life. I couldn't speak at first. My throat closed up. But then it all came pouring out. The bullying, the suspension, the letter, the way they'd publicly humiliated me, called me inadequate, a bad woman who deserved to be abandoned. There was a long silence. Then William's voice came back, but it wasn't warm anymore. It was ice, pure controlled fury. Hazel, listen to me very carefully, he said. You are my daughter. Martha is my granddaughter. Those people have made a profound miscalculation. You have not failed her. They have failed both of you. William, do not sign anything. Do not speak to anyone. I will handle this. I don't want your money. This isn't about money, he interrupted, his voice softening slightly. This is about family. And you've been my family since the day I married your mother. I'm sorry I let you push me away for so long, but I'm not letting you face this alone. Not anymore. He told me to meet him at the school the next morning, 9 a.m. sharp. He'd be there. I hung up, staring at the phone, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. What had I just done? Would he actually show up? Or was this going to be one more disappointment? One more man who promised and failed? That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying every moment, every cruel word, every look of smug superiority on the Dentons' faces. But at 8:55 a.m., standing outside Principal Harrison's office, I saw a sleek black car pull up. The door opened, and William stepped out. He looked exactly like what he was, a man with power, money, and zero tolerance for injustice. He walked over to me, placed a firm, reassuring hand on my shoulder, and gave me a single nod. For the first time in 20 years, I didn't feel alone. We walked into that office together. The Dentons were already there, looking smug. Principal Harrison sat behind his desk, clearly ready to wrap this up quickly and force me to sign. But then William spoke. Good morning, Mr. Harrison. The principal looked up, and his face went white. He recognized William instantly. Everyone in this city knew who William was. He funded half the district programs. He sat on the school board's advisory committee. He was untouchable. Mr. William, Harrison stammered, standing up. I didn't realize you were... I'm Hazel's stepfather, William said calmly, sitting down across from the Dentons. And Martha's grandfather. I understand there's been some confusion about accountability here. Amber Denton, still arrogant, smiled tightly. We're simply asking for an apology for Martha's violent behavior, sir. Surely you understand the need for discipline. William looked at her with the kind of calm that precedes devastation. Mrs. Denton, let me clarify something. Your daughter has spent weeks psychologically tormenting my granddaughter, using deeply personal and cruel insults about her family. When your daughter destroyed Martha's property and mocked her for being fatherless, Martha defended herself. That is not violence. That is self-preservation. Andrew Denton leaned forward. With all due respect, Mr. William, Martha pushed our daughter, and your daughter, William interrupted, his voice like steel, has been bullying mine, repeatedly, viciously, and you two have been complicit, spreading malicious gossip about my daughter's character, calling her inadequate, a bad woman. That, Mr. Denton, is defamation, and I don't tolerate it. The room went silent. William turned to Principal Harrison. Here's what's going to happen. You will reinstate Martha immediately, with a formal apology from the school. The Dentons will issue a written apology to both Hazel and Martha, and their daughter will be required to attend a bullying intervention program. If any of this is refused, I will take this matter to the school board, the local media, and my personal attorneys. Your choice. Principal Harrison looked like he might faint. Mr. William, I'm sure we can resolve this. Then resolve it. Now. The Dentons' faces went from smug to panicked. Andrew tried to bluster, but William silenced him with a look. 20 minutes later, I walked out of that office with a formal apology letter, Martha's reinstatement, and the knowledge that the Dentons had been utterly destroyed. William didn't gloat. He just squeezed my shoulder and said, "You're a great mother, Hazel. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Walking out into the sunlight that day, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades, protected, valued, loved. William didn't just win a fight. He gave me back my dignity. He proved that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when the world tries to break you. Martha got her life back. And I got my father. If you think William is the definition of a real father, smash that like button. If this story gave you chills, drop a comment telling me what you would have done. And subscribe, because every week we bring you stories where justice isn't just served, it's delivered with precision. See you in the next one.